All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. I'm Chris Leffingwell. I am the guy at VIP who takes out the trash and I clean the parking lots. So I figured, hey, what better person to present some ideas to you guys about technology? I'm actually the VP of sales. I am a founding partner of the company, and none of that means anything because it doesn't qualify me to do anything other than what my experiences lend to and what I've learned and what I know. So I can own a lot of things. It doesn't mean I know how to do anything. And that's sort of the point of this presentation. One of the things, the title of it is "The Cloud is Safe," right? I mean, everybody feel pretty good about using the cloud? How many of you use the cloud on a daily basis in your operations?
You got to define cloud.
That's a great point. That's sort of where we're going. So who doesn't think they're using cloud right now? Who would argue I don't use the cloud on our daily operations? Nobody. Okay, good, because you do. So let's go to the next slide. A few years ago, pretty much about 24 months ago, about 12 months ago, last year. So MoveIt.com, who's familiar with them? Move IT. So they're a secure cloud file transfer. There's a lot of different services. I'm sure y'all use them probably if you have a nursing staff, if you do have any DHS type students in your school, there's going to be some kind of a secure file transfer that's used to transfer files. Typically it's encrypted. A lot of state statutes require that stuff be encrypted. So Move IT was one of those. They're a secure cloud file transfer system. And last year they got hacked. And since 2005, there have been 3,713 data breaches in K through 12 and university environments. 37.6 million, give or take, records were affected. And by affected, what that traditionally has meant is student names, faculty names, social security numbers, tax documents. I mean, whatever's attached to that file has been essentially put out onto the dark web. So saying affected is sort of an understatement. So at the end of the day, you've got close to 40 million records that are affected by that. And this is interesting because in 2021, that same criteria, so where you call them K through 12 and university data breaches, about 130, give or take. That's not a bad number when you consider the potential environment that could exist in nationally. These are US based, by the way. So there was about 130 it's 2022, I apologize. In 2021, there's a little over 700. So what happened? Man, we got better. We figured out the cloud and remote environments and transferring data and all these different things that we do outside of our network. Cybersecurity became really important. What else was going on? There was sort of the tail end of transition to remote work, to distance learning, to all the different things that COVID drove us to that changed the entire industry for us. So all of these different things take place and we figure out, man, there's a lot of breaches and we get better. So in 2022, there's like 130. Man, that's a great number. You come down from 700 to 130. And then last year, 954. What does that tell me? That one provider was responsible for the majority, probably about 70% of those data breaches was the result of one provider, one what we would call a co-managed solution provider. Because somebody dropped the ball, they weren't watching some log, they thought, that event probably isn't real, and they let something slip by. Or there was a zero, who knows what 0 day means? Everybody? 0 day is the day that a provider of, let's just say a software developer, discovers that there was a liability, and the reason they discovered it is because they've never done anything to mitigate it, didn't know it existed. Somebody just leveraged that liability in their platform. That's 0 day. That's day 0. That's when they first found out we have a problem. So maybe this was a 0 day liability for MoveIt. They are still, it's progress.com is who owns them. They are still a provider on a wide scale for medical, for education, for banking, for insurance. So it didn't go away, it didn't shut them down, but man, it was big, it was ugly. So what does that mean? Are they a managed service provider? How many of you use School Dude or Power School? Any? Okay, we got some few. What's another application that you may use in operational management or student record management? Throw some names out. If anybody says Excel, I'm going to high five you.
Naviance for school transcripts.
Dude, what is it?
Naviance.
Naviance. Okay. Are those managed service providers? Do they manage a service for you remotely or otherwise? Okay, so that's the point is we're a managed service provider and you go, okay, we're local, we can come into your building and we can touch things. Or there's a third party, let's say your offsite backup and recovery solution, that's a managed service provider. But pretty much any software you're using, any application you're using, they're managing that service for you, right? So what's the role of an MSP? And I'm going to read this. Managed service providers, MSPs, are businesses that deliver, operate, or manage IT services to and for customers under contract. So pretty basic. But think of how expansive and how inclusive that is. It's not just some local provider or some state, maybe a regional provider that does this thing for you or comes and installs switches and programs those up, maybe your network security or infrastructure, something like that. You can see where now, at the end of the day, I've got a managed service provider for every single app on this device, right? They're managing some component of security of their app. So, of course, iOS is a service, and they're managing the security levels of that up at somewhere in Washington or Peru or where you name it. Most schools utilize some type of co-managed environment. So obviously, I'm in a room full of IT professionals who work at a school in the IT or technology department. So clearly, you have your own technology department. That would mean that if you bring in a third party, that's going to be a co-managed solution, whether it be for your network infrastructure, whether it be for your operational management software, whatever that is, whether it be for your VoIP, that's going to be a co-managed solution. So in selecting, you want to look at service providers. So you go cloud backup, that's a co-managed solution, cloud VoIP. So how many of y'all are on the cloud VoIP system? 1, 2, all right. How many schools have 100 users or less? How many represented here have 100 users or less? 500 users or less. That you just explained the VoIP, the cloud. So 1,000 users or less. 2,000 users or less. Okay, I need to qualify my question. By users, excluding students. Staff, faculty, etc., administration. So let's go back to 500 or less. Okay. So y'all are still using prem-based communication systems. Is that right? Anybody want to change their answer on cloud? Okay. Wow. That's a remarkable number. Shane, find all of them, talk to these people later. So then the rest of you are going to fall into, at some point, you have too many users and the licensing becomes way too cost prohibitive on a monthly basis for you to say, let's get rid of our VoIP, our prem-based system and go to some kind of cloud VoIP, right? Jinx is a perfect example. We have 2,200 users. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or a one-time acquisition cost of a prem-based system. So the numbers sometimes dictate what you choose. In that case, though, the ones that are VoIP, security monitor, how many of you have access control or surveillance on your campus of some kind? Do you have that remotely monitored by someone? Okay. What about campus police and or IT? So that is remotely monitored at some level. Is there a security liability involved in that monitoring at some level?
I'm not sure.
So the point is, we all have these different connecting points, all these different things that we use every day, but we don't think about them that way every day. You look at the access control where you badge in, you badge out, or whatever that looks like for you, but you don't ever think about, man, that device could be a liability. We had got a call, this was in November, I get a call from an emergency management director down in Wagner County. He says, hey man, he calls me 4 times. Was it Homeland? Is that right? Yeah. So finally he texts me, he goes, hey, I got a problem. Homeland Security is sitting across from my desk and I need to talk to you now. This is like 4:30. I was actually in a deer stand. And I said, my first response to him was, shut up, leave me alone, I'm deer hunting. Because I thought, there is no way that Homeland Security is in Wagner County, Oklahoma, right? They were. You know why? They had a hack. They had a breach by Hamas. And it was validated, it was real. Unitronics devices are used for water management, right? They're water filtration management. You're familiar with them. Where are they made? Israel. Who said that? Yeah, you cheated. Never mind. Don't listen to him. He cheated. So they're Israeli made. What's the point? Well, what Hamas was doing is they were using the update servers for those devices to perpetrate essentially like ping attacks, if you will, on Israeli networks just to flood their system with just ping attacks, but they looked like they were perpetrated from the U.S. And so it looks like all these attacks are coming from the U.S., and they are because they found some liability in these devices. As far as any kind of liability on their actual network, any of their information, this is a very isolated device. It was on a Windstream network of all things. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say the carrier, did I? So, yeah. But at any rate, it is a hack. And it's something that they never thought about because the water filtration in their instance, guess how often it's used? Only when every water plant in the county, so municipal, county, state, all the rural water districts have to be completely down for them to activate this Unitronics device. How often do you think they think about that device? Never. But it's sitting out on that network as a potential liability. So we had another instance of a municipality, a similar situation, VPN printer that they literally used to print traffic tickets. Just the weirdest, a very small community, and we get a call from in Homeland. I've gotten to be pretty good friends with the director for Arkansas and Oklahoma of Homeland. So if you ever need a connection there, let me know. I can hook you up. We'll move on. So the point is, there's a lot of devices that are connected to your network in some form or fashion you probably never even think about that could present a liability to you. And the thought is, are you managing those directly, like functionally each day? Or is there a third party that essentially set those up and manages that for you? So the idea is when you're looking at service providers, let's go to the next slide. This is us. This is your surveillance monitoring company, your network monitoring company. Maybe you have a Sentinel-1 or some sort of a cybersecurity application that you use. This is them. That's us. That's them. Here's your liability because this is your service channel. This is how they get in and out of your network to manage whatever that application is, whatever those devices may be. This is you, but these are all the other third parties that you use for other things. So this is a shared responsibility. I can't just go, hey man, I've got you, right? I'm bulletproof and you never have to think about this again. But you can't tell me, hey, listen, we're covered. I'm 100%. I'm good to go. I've got all this covered because you don't know what these guys are doing. I don't know what they're doing. They don't know what we're doing. And none of us know the full scope of what you're doing. So we have to collaborate on, hey, how do we build the best impenetrable network? Now, if I sat here and told you I can bulletproof you, I have the magic formula, I can make this work, right? I'd love to tell you that, but I'd be lying to you. And anybody that ever tells you that, guess what? They're lying to you. Nobody is bulletproof. Microsoft, who remembers the MS Blaster worm? Like the guy that wrote it, it affected 400 million computers worldwide. Why? Because guess what? This guy drops it into, it was essentially harmless, but he drops it into the Microsoft Windows update server. One company alone had 400,000 workstations affected, British Petroleum. How is that? Well, everybody goes, the guy got caught though, he wasn't that smart. No, he left a calling card and said, if you want to talk to me, call this number. Guess where he works today? Microsoft Security Division, right? I'd have hired him too. So the point is, this is not something that we can say, oh, that's their job, or that's you should have taken care of this. We've all got to be kind of looking out for each other. And that's where companies like us, companies like your software providers, they're not here to take your job. They can't take your job. You're irreplaceable as far as your district is concerned. Having a beating heart in the district who knows these teachers, who knows these students, here are the different reactions and different behaviors that these people are going to perpetrate on a daily basis. There's no artificial intelligence. There's no remote access. There's nobody outside of your building or outside of your community that's going to understand that better than you. So you are irreplaceable, right? What we do and what we should do is offer to come alongside you and partner with you and say, hey, here's how we want to help you. Here's some things what are your needs? And if we can't help you with that, maybe we know some application or person that can. And if we can, we say, look, here's what it looks like. How do we work together? So one of the things that we need to look at, you look at all these different breaches, all these different situations that took place. What's one way to mitigate this, right? Because you have all these different players on the same field, but they aren't necessarily on the same team. They should be working towards the same goal. Identity and access management, IAM, right? So we utilize IAM practices. What does that mean? It means that there's somebody watching who has credentials to get into this application. Who has credentials? Should your access control provider be able to go in and configure inbound and outbound ports on your network? Right? I wouldn't trust it. There should be somebody in your organization that goes, okay, what do you need? I can facilitate that for you. But I need to know, so in other words, do they have some kind of credential that gets them in and out of there? Who's watching the credentials in your network? Who is assigned with that task to say, who's got what credentials? Why do they have them? Do they need them? And what's the purpose, right? Do you have, who has somebody like that in your organization? Who is, if the somebody is you, raise your hand again.
Used to be me.
Used to be, okay. Wow. Okay, so that's great. So the ones that don't, advice, either find somebody in your internally that you can assign that to, or find a third party, a managed service provider that can do that for you or assist you with that or come up with policies. Something that we're going to get into. So one of the things that we can do in that is centralizing logs from multiple sources. There's all these different audit logs. There's all these different access logs, but they're from different organizations or different applications. Who's looking at that? Who's looking at these events or these potential breaches, right? Who has time to look at all this stuff? So do you go, all right, I need something that will monitor this stuff, and the ones that look suspect, I want to see those. Does anybody have any kind of an application or any kind of a tool like that today? Centurion, yes, I'm very familiar with it. Yeah, it's a great tool. So that's a managed service provider for you, right? And it's a good one. And so you look at that, and basically what you see is, here are the anomalies. Okay, what's your response to those?
Go through and check them out, see what's wrong with them.
Okay.
Now, we also we have a partner that helped us manage internal security and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm going to leave them unnamed for now, but Centurion was part of the package, so they would send a mix of that and their own viewpoints of it. So we, have more.
That's a great example of what I'm talking about right here. So you have multiple sources. So you have a partner, so maybe an us type company, if you will, that came in with a third party solution and said, we'll give you this, we'll provide this, and we'll leverage their application to do these things. You've now got multiple sources of data, and now you have something that's bringing the anomalies to you for you to review and go, do I have a reaction to these? So how do you facilitate that? That could be 24 different sets of logs coming in, and you got to go to this application and this application, right? And then one day you're going to go, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm not even going to look at it anymore, right? Because it's going to happen because we're people, and that's just what we do. So at the end of the day, how many of you know when your next oil change is due? Besides Mark, like the sticker on the windshield, but how often do you look at that? You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's the point. You just go, look, it just kind of slips my mind. I don't think about it every day because we're people. It's what we do, right? I'm 2,000 miles over, by the way. Yeah, I know. Not a company car, it's mine. But the point is, let's find something that will consolidate this. Let's put it all into one pane of glass or one GUI where we can see everything at once, or you have something that provides so. All right, let's keep going. So if you guys want to scan that code, one thing you're going to see when you scan that, it's not going to sell you anything. It's going to take you to a document. But before it takes you to that document, it's going to be a shameless plug for VIP. It's going to take you to our website, and then you click on a website. It's an NSA, National Security Administration. What's the CISA? Does everybody know what that stands for? I will tell you, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. A couple of years ago, I stood in this room, and I talked to a different group of people. Some of you maybe have been here. I know Crystal was, Bill. And so we talked about, at some point coming up, because of all the different changes that took place because of COVID, you're going to see some federal regulations start to come down. Some different things that the federal government is going to start to say, look, as far as internet access, you have to adhere to these standards. Whether you're a bank, whether you're an insurance company, doesn't matter if you're an auto body shop, you have to now start adhering. If you take payments online, if you do online banking, if you do any number of these things, if you store any kind of personal data, you have to adhere to these federal regulations. Well, guess what? Now there are two organizations, and it's these. She moved. The NSA and CISA. Did anybody get a chance to scan that? They wanted to. Both those organizations are federal organizations that regulate the different components of whether it's infrastructure, whether it's cybersecurity, and the other one is going to be the internet, for lack of a better, more, we'll call it the all-inclusive term. So it's here. It's here today. You saw it in banking. You saw it in medical. Well, now it's everywhere. It's anywhere that the internet touches is now governed by federal regulation. The end. It's just there. So how can we leverage that? What can we do to to mitigate different things. Let's integrate auditing into security operations, right? So is anybody hearing a theme here? Right? The stuff that you hate doing, the stuff that sucks on a daily basis, probably some value to it. And it's auditing, it's finding out where's the paper trail, where's the event log, where's the thing that after who knows what a right of boom. Does anybody know what that is? So here's left of boom, the event, the breach, the hack is boom, all right? Right of boom. So now I'm to the right of boom. What happened? And how do I keep it from happening again? So what we want to do is let's ask these questions where we're right of boom. Let's ask those to the left of boom so that when boom happens, we essentially either diffused it completely or made it a very minor event at the worst. So how do you do that? All of those things we're talking about of what's happening, when's it happening, where are the anomalies, how do I mitigate those? That's what we do. Cloud service providers. Organizations may choose, organizations being the school, the hospital, you name it, may choose to build much of their base security structure upon cloud native capabilities provided by their cloud service provider. Again, how much security do I go out and download for this device? Being honest, I don't. I just depend on iOS to do what I think it's doing. Think about this and apply this to your selection of a service, whether it's a service like we provide, whether it's your phone provider. How many people know someone who either owns a car or drives a car on a daily basis? Right? Everybody. How many of you own a car? Probably everybody in the room. When you went to buy that car, what process did you go through?
Lots of paper.
Wait, before you got to the dealership, how did you select which dealership to go to? Research. What? Internet research? Who else? Reviews?
Listening to other people.
You're rare. You are a unique and rare animal. What was that? Auto Trader?
Actually, I went to the car lot that actually had cars on the car lot.
That doesn't count. That was COVID. I need a car and you have one. So let me guess, you paid a premium. This is the upcharge for whatever. So the point is, on a daily basis, whether it's a car, whether it's a laptop, whether it's whatever, people by and large today go out and seek the advice of total strangers via reviews, via internet data research, whatever it is, and they take that and assimilate their decision based on that. And how many people do we know that own and drive cars? Like I said, you're a rare animal. You wouldn't talk to people about what they drive, why they drive it, what they like about it, what'll it pull, all those different questions. But most everybody in society today doesn't do that. You know people personally that have personal experience, probably known them for years and trust them. But we go to the internet and seek advice from somebody we've never met, probably AI just making stuff up as it goes along. But you get my point. Well, we're doing that a lot in our day-to-day lives. This hospital uses this. This school uses this. They say it's good. Some of the decisions aren't necessarily up to you. The school board says, well, we know that Jinx uses it. They're the best school in the world. Well, these big boys use it, so it must be good, right? Everybody hear of Enron and their financial strategies. So some of the services that you select, we've got to be really picky and let's interview. Let's talk to people. What does this look like? What is log aggregation and centralization, right? We talked about that. Security information and event management. So as you're talking to a service provider, what does this look like? What does your security information look like? What does your event management look like? A lot of companies will all of a sudden go, that's the secret sauce, and we don't share that, right? Well, I'm not saying take them off the list, but maybe move them closer to the bottom. I want to know. I don't want you just to tell me, trust me, I'm taking care of this. This is a great review that AI just wrote because of the question you asked. Doesn't work that way. Threat intelligence information, who knows what that is? Who wants to take a good guess at what that is? It's exactly what it says. What is the threat? Who's gone out and gathered the intel on it? And how are they going to deliver it to me? If I offered you a service for free and you knew that this service was incredible in terms of bringing you, here's the most recent threats online, here are the most recent cybersecurity threats, here's the most current data on how they will affect you, what they could do to your network, all these things. Would you want that service? If it didn't cost you a nickel, would you want that? For whether professionally or personally, right? Of course you would. So Why then, if you're actually paying somebody for something, would you not actually demand that level of service? Why would you not say, listen, part of what you're going to do for me is whatever you're hearing about out there, whether it makes your organization look good or bad, I expect you to bring me the intel on that. I need to know this stuff. I'm not worried about pointing fingers at somebody. I'm worried about protecting, doing the job that I've been tasked to do. So again, while you're looking, and then lastly on that is alerts. How do I notify you? What do I do? Is it automatic? Is it an email? Do I send you a fax that goes to the nurse's office because they still have to have a fax machine? How do I get that to you? How do I alert you? Is it a text? And the answer should be, if it doesn't sound something like this, listen, how do you want me to notify you? What works best for you, right? Those are the companies you move closer to the top of the list. They need to provide a great solution, right? There's a lot of companies that provide it. There's a bunch of them out there on this floor. There's people I see that are competitors of ours. They have great solutions. They really do. I'm not going to take anything away from anybody. But then what about the personal service? How do they interact with you? How do they determine what's best for you? They don't determine what's best for you. You tell what your needs are. You tell what's best for you. Then we come back and say, listen, here's some options that you have. I recommend, here's our experience at these levels. Here's the different ways it can assist you. But at the end of the day, be sure to interview that service more than just they came in at the lowest bid. Remember, your state requirement is not just the lowest bid. It's the lowest and what? Lowest and best bid. You define the environment that says this is the best bid, okay? So let's go to the next slide. Just planning to incorporate MSPs. Again, you already incorporate MSPs today. We already talked about that. You have services that maybe you didn't walk into the room agreeing they were MSP, but they are managed services at some point, at some level. So contingency planning organizations should identify and understand the agreements provided by MSP. You have a service level agreement with these people, right? I have a service level agreement. You can call it the EULAs or the whatever you want to call it, but there's some level of agreement that I have with whatever the entity is that's providing me a third party service. So understand those, what's in there. And here's the other part, and I am a master at this at our company. How many times do I change a vendor provided contract or service level agreement? Brent? Mark?
I don't know if that number exists.
So I am not afraid to call the vendor and go, I don't like how this sounds. I don't like how this looks. Strike this line, add this, change that. And they'll go, let's go back to our legal department and see if they'll take it. 99 times out of 100, they go, yeah, they're good with that. If you see something you don't like in that agreement, ask them if they'll change it. They probably will. And to me, it's got to be something that's customized to fit your specific entity's needs, right? So areas to consider include the responsibility of MSP regarding notification of suspected security incidents, such as potential breaches and service level agreements related to remediation or recovery from security incidents or outages. So again, I mention that, but I mention that from the standpoint of it needs to be in your SLA, it needs to be in that service agreement to at least discuss that. But the mitigation of something should not, if all you hear from a company is how they're going to mitigate an instance if it happens, that tells me, what says to me, they don't specialize in getting ahead of the incident where it never happens. All we're going to do is tell you how we're going to mitigate this. I want to tell you how we're going to work very, very hard to keep that incident from ever happening, right? It's the difference between having a burglar alarm and having a police officer standing at your front door, right? I want to be the police officer standing at the front door, not telling the officers what happened 20 minutes after it took place. So other components to consider, legal and civil liabilities of managed or co-managed environments. How many of you know roughly what your managed service providers today offer you in terms of civil liability protection? Don't have a clue. What kind of civil liability protection do I have on this device? Nobody knows, right? Why would we? So as you interview MSPs, as you interview software providers, as you interview these different things, hey, what kind of civil liability protection do you have? Am I indemnified in this instance, or do I have some liability on this? Those are fair questions, and we need to ask those, and they should be able to answer them, or at least say, look, I don't know the answer to that, but I will get back to you and let you know what we do, right? Then you're going to weed out some people, because guess what? Some of them aren't going to get back to you. What does that tell you? Probably not the right company. So last couple slides, recommendations. Adhere to important security standards, part of a selection criteria when choosing MSP. That's pretty much what we've talked about this whole time. Two, choose service and service levels that provide visibility into MSP actions via IAM and log analytic systems. If I say, oh, that's the secret sauce, I don't want to show you that, right? Move me to the bottom of the list. If I'm willing to go, oh yeah, here's how we do that. Here's how we know, here's the centurion, right? This is how we do this for you. This is the visibility. You can log into this portal and see a lot of what our guys see if you want to. That's probably the right company to work with, or at least move them up to the top of the list. I need to be able to have a discussion with you that makes you feel comfortable that I'm not just telling you, hey man, just trust me, right? You don't know me. I might be selling you one of those cars off of cheapcars.com. Perform and test configurations to ensure that logs and IAM information related to MSP actions are integrated into the organizational security infrastructure. That's a lot of words to say. If you've got the information and you're being delivered the data, figure out a way to apply that to your network infrastructure. Figure out a way to apply that to your cybersecurity stacks, all the different applications you use for security. Choose service levels that provide visibility. I told you I had that one. Regularly review MSP accounts and privileges in IAM systems, right? Broken record, find out who's got access, why they have access, and to what. Audit MSP actions via log analytics, prioritize procedures for alerting on investigating. That's an internal process. That's you saying, hey, my people need to follow up on this information. What policies, what do I have written down that say, here's how we do this job? Because if you don't, I guarantee you probably have some version of a policy to mitigate a breach. Do you have a policy that says, how do I keep a breach from happening? What are the different steps we take? Some of you may have a version of that. Awesome. If you do, you should constantly be building that policy. How many times do we have to get it right? I'm sure you all have heard this. We got to get it right every single time. How many times the bad guys have to get it right? Once. One time. Consider the need for MSP services if an incident occurs, and choose services levels that provide the necessary level of support. So if an incident happens, right, do you find an MSP to help you mitigate that? That MSP could be it's a managed service of the legal aspect of that. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to mean, hey, they're doing the bits and bytes. They may come in and say, listen, from a legal perspective, this is the level of the hack you just had. This is your legal obligation to whatever the clientele you serve. And here's how we suggest you do these things. And here's the different foundations for why we make these recommendations, okay? Perform tabletop exercises around incident response or system failures related to the MSP and incorporate the findings into incident response and system recovery plans. Think military, think police, fire service. How many schools have fire drills? Do they do fire drills anymore? Tornado drills, hurricane drills. You're doing a fire drill. Let's have a real world, like, this just happened. Let's implement this thing. Let's test it and see if it works. And then shoot holes in it. And don't have a pride level that says, this is my baby, I'm not changing it, I'm always right. Approach from the standpoint of, look, if there's legitimate concerns about this process by real world functionality and it didn't work, okay, let's make some changes.